Hi, welcome to the course of Installing SharePoint 2013 using PowerShell. My name is Kumashwar Sharma. I'm a Microsoft Certified Trainer since 2004. In this course, I'm going to explain to you how we can automate the process of SharePoint 2013 installation using PowerShell. Yes, we can install SharePoint 2013 simply by using GUI, but why somebody wants to actually do it through PowerShell? Yes, the main answer for that is yes, we would like to automate the process of installation by using some kind of scripting. So if we have to install SharePoint on multiple servers, so rather than doing the same thing by being physically there and then trying to install SharePoint, we can as well create scripts, and then your scripts are reusable. So you can simply run those scripts on multiple servers to complete the installation of SharePoint across multiple SharePoint servers in your firm. Normally, yes, the SharePoint administrators likes PowerShell because their day-to-day activities involves a lot of administrative activities. So they can automate their day-to-day activities using PowerShell. So before I show you the steps involved in installing SharePoint 2013 using PowerShell, let's actually have a quick look at our course objectives. So now you can look at the course objectives. So how am I actually going to start this course? Yes, first I'm actually going to give you a quick introduction to PowerShell. So that says whether you have PowerShell knowledge or you don't have PowerShell knowledge, it should not be an issue for us because we're not actually going to use various commandlets of PowerShell to get the installation done. So whatever commandlets we actually need as part of this demonstration, I'm going to explain to them from scratch. So you can get a bit of PowerShell as well while doing this course. Yes, after I give you the introduction to the PowerShell, then I actually give you an introduction to the various modules what PowerShell is offering to us. And one of the modules that we are mostly interested in this course is the Server Manager module. So which actually helps us to perform so many other activities through scripts. I'll show you then how we can install the necessary features that your operating system requires using PowerShell script. Once that is done, then we'll see how we can write some PowerShell scripts to download the SharePoint 2013 prerequisites. So obviously when you try to install SharePoint 2013, you do see some error messages saying you have to have some prerequisites first in place and then you have to run the SharePoint 2013 setup. So I'll show you how we can download those prerequisites files using PowerShell script itself. So rather than we physically open that URL and trying to download the file, we can even download these prerequisites through a script. And once that's been done, then I'll show you how we can write a couple of scripts to install those SharePoint 2013 prerequisites automatically. Once that is done, you're actually ready to install SharePoint. So I'll show you then how we can write scripts to initiate the SharePoint 2013 installation. So once SharePoint is installed successfully, then we need to see how we can write a couple of scripts to configure your SharePoint 2013 form. So this is how this course takes you from a stage where you absolutely have a clean operating system. You may have either Windows 2008 R2 server or you may have Windows 2012 server. So this course teaches you the concepts for both these two operating systems. So when I actually start teaching you this course, I will be on a system that just has Windows 2012 server. It's a clean OS installation. It doesn't have anything else. And after the OS has been installed by me, I'm going to make this as a domain controller by installing the Active Directory services. And after that, yes, I'm going to install my SQL Server 2008 R2 with Service Pack 1. So this is how the setup that you require to start doing things along with me is have a clean operating system and then make it a domain controller and then install your SQL Server 2008 R2 with Service Pack 1. Yes, once that's been done, then it is always better if you apply Windows updates on your system, so that whatever updates you have, that will be installed on your system, so you're ready for the execution of the PowerShell scripts to install SharePoint 2013. Okay, so before we start actually the real technical stuff, let's try to understand what exactly I have on this server so far. So I did a clean installation of Windows Server 2012 R2 on this computer. And then I have actually made it as a domain controller. And I have also installed my SQL Server 2008 R2 with Service Pack 1. And of course I have my Office products as well. So other than this list of software, I do not have anything on this computer. So our plan is to install SharePoint 2013 on this computer using PowerShell. So why we need PowerShell, or why we use PowerShell to install SharePoint on a computer, we'll come to understand in the subsequent lectures. But before that, after you have ensured your operating system has been successfully installed and you have made it as a domain controller, and also you have your SQL servers in place, then it's time for us to actually go into the server manager and then understand what needs to be done from the server manager. So technically speaking, if I'm installing SharePoint 2013 using GUI from using frontend, I would normally come to the server manager and then I click on add roles and features, and we can simply click on next. So we're going for the role-based installation, and then you can actually select the server from the server pool if you have multiple servers, on which server would you like to install. And then basically you need to select the different roles and different features that you wish to install. So if you actually see this current screen, because as I said, it's a brand new installation of this OS on this computer, I do not have any roles or features except my Active Directory domain services and then the DNS server. So obviously, to have SharePoint installed, we need to have so many other features to be installed on our servers. So we will see how we can install those required features using PowerShell. Also, when I click on next, yes, it takes me to the features. So currently I have my .NET Framework 3.5 features and .NET Framework 4.5 features were actually installed. That was because when I have installed SQL Server 2008 R2 with Service Pack 1, you cannot install SQL Server 2008 unless you have the .NET Framework 3.5 features. So that is why I have some features have already been installed on this server. In addition to that, you can see Windows PowerShell is already been there for me. So this is how you have looked at the different roles and different features that are already been installed on this server using the Server Manager console. So basically the Server Manager Management Console is available for us both in Windows 2008 and in Windows 2012 as well. One of the major enhancement that has been made to the Server Manager in Windows 2012 by Microsoft is you can actually, as a network administrator, I mean to say, you can configure or you can manage multiple servers from the same console, rather than physically we work on the other servers or we use remote desktop to connect to the other servers. So that is not really required. So in Windows 2012, the network administrators can use Server Manager to connect to the other servers to provision them or to manage them. So that is one of the nice enhancement made on Windows 2012 operating system for the Server Manager, and that really helps the network administrators a lot. So whatever steps I'm going to do in this course to install SharePoint 2013 using PowerShell, so this is applicable for you both on Windows 2008 or on Windows 2012. So the steps what I'm going to explain you can follow to install SharePoint 2013 either on a Windows 2008 server or on Windows 2012 server. So again, as I said, I'll be basically using PowerShell. I will be writing some scripts to install SharePoint 2013 on this server. We're not actually going to take help of the GUI. So why somebody has to use or somebody prefers using PowerShell to install SharePoint 2013, I'll explain to you in the next lecture. So now we'll talk about why we use PowerShell to install SharePoint 2013. Firstly, to make the complete installation process reusable. In real time, obviously, there will be multiple SharePoint servers, so where we have to install SharePoint across multiple systems in your network. So it's obviously a tedious process if the same thing has to be repeated every now and then. Instead, we can actually write some PowerShell scripts and we can reuse them across multiple servers. So that's one of the main reasons why people go for PowerShell to install SharePoint 2013. Also, by following this approach, we make our installation process less error prone because we write a lot of scripts to automate and set up the SharePoint 2013, and also we can write scripts to configure our SharePoint 2013. So obviously, what is the difference between setting up SharePoint 2013 and configuring SharePoint 2013? So when I say setting up SharePoint 2013 means you're basically doing all your work to install it. So after it gets successfully installed, we still have to configure SharePoint 2013 to actually start using it. So we can actually write scripts in PowerShell both to set up SharePoint 2013 as well as to configure SharePoint. And one of the nice thing about writing scripts and then executing the scripts to do something is your installation will run in an unattended manner, or what people call it as a silent mode, so that no person has to be present physically at the computer when it is doing so many things for us. So doing things in an unattended manner is one of the reasons why people prefer PowerShell. And this becomes very useful to you in case if you have to install SharePoint across multiple servers or across multiple SharePoint FOPs. Also, in a different scenario, people consider PowerShell. What if you have to install SharePoint in an offline mode on multiple servers? So if you are actually downloading some prerequisites or so many other things from the net while you're connected to the internet across a specific span of time, so there will be a possibility that you might get to different builds in case if there are some new releases. So but in the organization, we have a policy that we need to have the same build on all SharePoint servers. So that's the company likes to do the SharePoint installation in an offline mode. So the same build that is being downloaded, it has to be installed across multiple servers. So in such scenarios, you can actually use PowerShell to install SharePoint 2013 in an offline mode. So that is how the summary is. We can automate the process of installation of SharePoint 2013 by using PowerShell. We write certain scripts, and when we run the scripts will run on their own, and then the installation will happen. In the subsequent lectures, I'll show you how to write PowerShell scripts and how to execute them as well. So, as I tried to convince you in my earlier slides that PowerShell is indeed the best option to automate the installation process of SharePoint. But what we need to understand is what PowerShell is actually giving to us as a script developer, and what feature, by using which features of PowerShell we can actually automate the whole process. Yes, PowerShell has got modules. So basically you can define a module as a set of related Windows PowerShell functionalities which we can load into the current PowerShell session. So PowerShell obviously has got a lot of modules. So depending upon a requirement, we actually start working with a specific module. So the concept here is, how do I know what modules is PowerShell giving it to me? Or how do I load a specific module of my choice into my PowerShell session so that I can actually start working with the various commands of that module? Yes, you have a very nice command called as get-module, and then you can say -list available, and this cmd let, or this command, actually lets you see the various modules that PowerShell is offering to us. So if you have a specific module to work with, like we'll be working with the Server Manager module in this course, because we now have seen that all the features that needs to be installed, it has to be installed from the Server Manager. So that is why the most important module for us is the Server Manager. So you can actually use the command let import -module and then the Server Manager module. So this command will actually load the Server Manager module into your current session so that you can actually start using the different commandlets of the Server Manager module. Now let me show you practically how I can execute these two commands. Now you're looking at the desktop of my computer, and I can actually click here to go to the PowerShell session. So this is your PowerShell session where you can actually issue the PowerShell commands. Okay, currently I'm working in the F drive. You can see the PowerShell script prompt looks like this. So I can actually go back to the root of my drive, and I can type get-module -list available. And when I press enter, we should be able to see the list of various modules that we have currently on this server, what PowerShell is offering to us in fact. So when you look at the results of a PowerShell commandlet, so get-module, we call it as a commandlet, or some people call it as cmd lets. Basically they are just commands which gives you some functionality. So if you look at the results of this commandlet, I've got module type, a version, the module name, and then what commands this module is offering to us. Anyway, if you come down, and the module that I'm actually interested in is the Server Manager module. Using this module is as equivalent as clicking on the Server Manager and doing something. So I add roles or I add features using GUI from here. If I don't like to do that from the front end, I can actually take into references the Server Manager module, and we can try the various commands what it is offering to us. Also, you can notice one thing. PowerShell has got different types of modules. You can notice for some of them it is a manifest module, some of them it's a script module, and we also have binary modules. Anyway, we are actually more interested in the Server Manager module, which is actually a script module. So now we know how to see the list of various modules that PowerShell is offering to us. Because now I'm actually interested in working with the Server Manager module, I will be using the command import module followed by the module name. And when I press enter, it silently returns the prompt. So that means the Server Manager module has been loaded, and you're actually now ready to use the various commands what the Server Manager module is offering to us. Of course, you can see it is offering us some commands like get Windows feature, install Windows features, uninstall Windows features, and so many things. So in my subsequent lectures, I'll show you how to work with the various commands of the Server Manager module. Okay, so in the last video, I have explained to you what exactly is a PowerShell module. So basically, a module contains a lot of commands. So the commands are actually called as cmdlets. So the exact definition for a cmdlet, which we pronounce it as a commandlet, is a lightweight Windows PowerShell script that actually does a specific functionality for us. So fortunately, PowerShell is very rich in terms of documentation. So if you're not sure of using how to execute a specific commandlet, you can actually use a command like get-help followed by the commandlet name. For example, the Server Manager module is anyway giving to me two different commandlets like install Windows feature or add Windows feature. So if I want to see how to use the install Windows feature or add Windows feature, then I can use the command get-help followed by the add-Windows feature or followed by install-Windows feature. So let's go back to the PowerShell prompt and then try to execute these two commands and just to see how the documentation looks like. You can now see I'm still inside the same PowerShell session that I have actually opened in the last video. So yes, obviously we have just executed the command get-module list available, and we found out the module what we are more interested in, and I tried to load this module, import module Server Manager. Now for example, I can say get-help, and one of the commandlet I'm trying to use is add Windows feature. So when I press enter, you can notice this get-help command is actually giving me, so what's the description for that, or how do we actually use the features and all. So basically you can notice I have add Windows feature, I also have install Windows feature. So both these commandlets are being provided by PowerShell actually for us. But ideally it is recommended to use the install Windows feature in case if you are working on Windows Server 2012, and for any reason if you're working on Windows 2008 server, then you have to use the add Windows feature. Because I'm actually currently working on Windows 2012 server, so it is actually expecting me to use the install Windows feature. So let's type install-Windows feature. So now you can see there is the syntax for the install Windows feature and also some description about it, and you will also be able to go through the actual functionality of this specific commandlet. In fact, after you type get-help, you can type any cmdlet that you are interested in. So that is how PowerShell is very rich at documentation. So in case if you wish to see the examples of any commandlet, you can simply type get-help install Windows feature -examples, so that will actually give you some examples as well. So I can use arrow keys, upward arrow keys, to go back to the previous command. So I'm simply adding the extra option called as examples and press OK. So now you can see it has included a couple of examples as well for us. So this is the example 6, example 5, 4, 3, 2, like this. So this is how we now know what exactly is a module and what exactly is a commandlet. So commandlets are basically part of your module. Like for example, the install Windows feature is a commandlet that belongs to the Server Manager module. And for each commandlet, you can actually get the documentation by using the get-help. If you pass -examples at the end, yes, it does show you examples as well for us, so that should make our job a bit easier. Perfect. So in the next session, I'll actually explain to you how to start working with the various commandlets of the Server Manager module. In this lecture, I'll talk about the Server Manager module. Already we now know how to import a Server Manager module into a PowerShell session. But now we have to know what are the different commands the Server Manager module is offering to us. Actually, the Server Manager module, which was introduced with the Windows Server 2008 R2, has got three useful commands. One is get Windows feature, add Windows feature, and remove Windows feature. Please be noted, install Windows feature and uninstall Windows feature you're supposed to use only if you're working on Windows 2012 server. But on Windows 2012 server, even if you wish add Windows feature or remove Windows feature, it works, no problems. But ideally, what Microsoft recommends us is to use the install and uninstall Windows feature in case if you have to install the features on Windows 2012 server. If you are working on Windows 2008, definitely you are bound to add Windows feature or remove Windows feature. So let's get back to the PowerShell session and try to use a couple of commands from the screen, and in my subsequent lectures I'll explain to you how to work with the get Windows features, or how to work with add Windows or remove Windows features, or how to install or uninstall the Windows features. You can see now I'm still working in the same PowerShell session that I have opened earlier. So basically, I know that I have already taken into references my Server Manager module by typing import module Server Manager. So let's clear the screen, and I would like to know what commands it is actually offering to us. So I can type get command -module and then your module name. So when I press enter, this command or this cmdlet is actually listing out the different commandlets of the Server Manager module. So I can notice add Windows feature here, or remove Windows feature, or install Windows features, or uninstall Windows feature, and also get Windows feature. So this is how, after you import a specific module into the PowerShell session, if you wish to know what commands this module is offering, we can use this command. Once we get to know what commands a module is offering, and we obviously know how to work with an individual commandlet by looking at the documentation, I can say I can use this commandlet that we have used in the previous session, get -help, and you can look at the documentation of each and every one. Obviously, in the rest of the steps of this codes, we'll be working with add Windows feature, remove Windows features, install, uninstall, and get Windows features. So I'm going to explain to you how to use these 5 commandlets in the subsequent lectures. In this lecture, I'll explain to you how to work with the get Windows feature commandlet of the Server Manager module. The get Windows feature commandlet allows you to retrieve information about the various roles, services, and features that are available for installation on a specific server, as well as the list of roles and features that have already been installed on your server. So basically, the get Windows feature commandlet gives you the list of installed features and the list of features that are available for you but not installed. Actually, we fall in the second scenario, because I did a clean installation of this operating system, only certain features are enabled for me right now. The features which SharePoint expects are not yet been installed by me. So the features that we are supposed to install will fall under the available category. So we will now see how to work with the get Windows feature commandlet. If I give the very first command get-Windows feature, it will actually give me the list of all features on this computer, including the ones that have been installed and that are being available for installation. Normally, when you're issuing any PowerShell script commands, you see information of various columns. For any reason, if you wish to see the information of a specific column, then after the commandlet you can use the pipe sign and you can use the select clause followed by the list of fields. In this command, obviously I'm only selecting the feature name, but in the next command I'm selecting both the feature name and then its install state. So the install state will be installed in case if the feature has already been installed. The install state will be shown as available in case if it is available but not yet installed by you. So if the length is very lengthy, if the list is too lengthy, then you can say get Windows feature pipe sign select name comma install state. I'm trying to retrieve the information of these two columns, and then we're applying another pipeline where install state equals to installed. So if somebody asks you, show me the list of features that are currently being installed on the server, I can use this equals to operator -eq where clause. Instead of writing in this way, we can also use another syntax for that. I can simply say get-Windows features pipe sign. Your where clause can be returned like question mark, pair of flower braces, $_ and then dot your property. So this is as if equivalent to the list of features that have been installed will be returned by this command. You can also use wildcard characters at the time of retrieving the features. I can say get-Windows feature, and we're trying to retrieve all the features whose name starts with web hyphen followed by anything. So hyphen name is the class, and then the value for that is web hyphen star. That means you get the list of all features whose name starts with web hyphen. So this is how, in order to start writing scripts in PowerShell pretty shortly, we need to get used to certain commandlets of the server manager module, and that's the reason I'm trying to concentrate on the get Windows feature. So let's do one thing, go back to the PowerShell session and then try to play with these commands. I'm now inside this PowerShell session. So already I have come to know these are the different commandlets I have it under the server manager module. Let's say I want to start working with the get Windows feature first of all. So if I type get Windows feature and when I press enter, you can notice it has collected some data and then it has given me the various features that I have on this computer. So it contains the name of the feature and also the install state. I can notice some of my features are available, means not yet installed. You've seen it already in the server manager. Only Active Directory domain services was actually installed by me, so it's coming as installed. I can also see DNS server is installed. And we have other services from the file and storage services. I can see them as installed. So otherwise, for most of the remaining services, I'm only seeing them as available. So I can see my .NET Framework 3.5 and 4.5, I see them as installed. So this is how, by using the get-Windows feature you actually get to know what features have been installed already on the server and what features are available but not yet installed. So looking at this list is as equivalent as going to the server manager and trying to click on add roles and features and then looking at the various roles and looking at the various features. So whatever you see here as selected are obviously the ones that are being shown as installed. Otherwise, the remaining things are available but not yet installed. Many of the features that I'm seeing currently as available are supposed to be installed if I have to start my SharePoint installation. That is obviously my next step. We'll identify what are the features out of this lengthy list are actually required, and we'll install all those features one by one. Yes, currently this Get Windows feature is actually showing me 3 columns of information like display name, and install state. What if that's confusing as if you're interested in only retrieving a specific column of information, then you can say select name. So this is actually going to show me only the name of the feature. If you wish to select multiple columns, I just pressed upward arrow key so that I can see my previous command, and when I press enter, this time I'm able to see both name and then the install state. So currently, yes, the list contains both available and installed. What if I like to see only the list of features whose install state is actually installed? So I can say installed here. So now you can see only this many features are currently being installed on this computer. Similarly, instead of installed, if I say available, now you can see these are the features that are being available for you, but you haven't yet installed. So that is how Get Windows feature is a very useful commandlet. For any reason, okay, if this is really a pretty lengthy statement, you can also use a special wait clause syntax by using $_.install, for example. So when I press enter, so now you can see the list of features that have the install state as installed here. So that is how we can actually use the Get Windows feature commandlet. Also, let's try the last command that I have discussed in the slide. What if you wish to retrieve the features whose name actually starts with web hyphen? So I can say there's so many features whose name starts with web. In fact, many of the features that starts with web we actually need it because they all belongs to IIS. Most of the features that I see here that belongs to IIS have the name starting with the letters web hyphen. So this is how Get Windows feature commandlet gives you the various features that you have on this computer, either in installed state or in uninstalled state. Right now, our main concern is to install the ones that are not been currently installed. And we are supposed to install only those features what are actually required for us to start installing the actual SharePoint files. So we'll see them what features are actually required for SharePoint in the subsequent lectures. In this lecture, I'll explain to you how we can export the results of our PowerShell commandlets to some files. So you can actually redirect the output to certain files so that you have better control over reading the content of that results in a specific file. So in the previous demonstrations, when I was actually running the Get Windows features command, I was getting the output on the same screen, and I need to obviously scroll down to see and understand the information. Instead, I can say get hyphen Windows feature, and you can redirect the output to some file of your choice. Mostly people likes to export the results so that they can open in Excel. So I'm just trying to show you how we can redirect the output of this command to a CSV file, a comma separated value. Obviously, the first commandlet will redirect the complete output of the get Windows feature command. All columns and all records goes to this file. If you likes to export only information of specific columns, then you can say get hyphen Windows feature pipe sign select clause, which is a keyword, name comma install state. So you are now selecting only the feature name and then the feature install state, and that needs to be redirected to a CSV file. This is possible. In my third command, I'm trying to run the same command almost up to here, but only thing I'm actually trying to apply a sort clause. So if you wish to sort your information, then you can say sort hyphen object and then install state. You wish to sort the information based on the install state, so that I should be able to see all the installed features in one set and all the available features in one set, so I can easily identify what features that I'm supposed to have not yet been installed by me. And this complete output we can redirect to a CSV file. So let's go back to the PowerShell session and try to issue these commands. You can notice I'm still in the same PowerShell session that I've been using. So we would like to see how we can export the information to an output file. So I can say something like, say, all features 1.csv. So I'm trying to say get Windows feature redirect to all features 1.csv and press enter. So everything is done. So instead of opening it in Excel, maybe I can quickly open this in Notepad. So I can see my output here. So obviously at this point of time they are not sorted, so you're seeing some of them in install state and some of them in available state, and you're also looking at the information of all three columns. If the information is too much, then you can actually apply a pipe sign so that you can actually select only the columns that you wish to export. So I can say select name comma install state. So maybe this time I'm actually trying to put this to a file called as 2. Let's change the name to all features 2.csv and put that pipe sign again, as it looks like I lost that. Okay, so that's the command get hyphen Windows feature select name comma install state, and we are trying to redirect this to all features 2.csv. Once it is done, you can simply say notepad all features 2.csv, and that should show me the information about my name and then the install state. So this is how you can export the information of specific columns. Okay, right now the result is actually a mixture of installed and then the ones that have been available. Instead, what I would like to do, I would like to export both these two columns, but I wish to sort this on my install state field, and we wish to export this to all features 3.csv. So once this is done, I can open my all features 3.csv, and now you can see first I'm seeing my available features because it is actually sorting in ascending order. So many features are still in the state of available, and a bunch of features are in the state of installed. So this is how, in this lecture, I have shown you how we can export the output of the get Windows feature commandlet to some physical files, and we can open those files in some editor of our choice, and we can inspect the output. In this lecture, I'll explain to you how to work with add Windows feature commandlet. This is another commandlet coming from the server manager module, which we have already imported. So basically, this commandlet helps you to install specific roles and features on a computer that is running Windows Server 2008 R2. But yes, though I'm currently using Windows 2012 Server, I can still run this command. But we have to use install Windows feature as per the recommendations from Microsoft in case if we have to install some features or add some features on Windows 2012 Server. But I'm actually going to demonstrate you how we can use the add Windows feature, and then later we'll see how we can use the install Windows feature. So the command is pretty straightforward. You can simply say add Windows feature followed by the feature name. So how do I know the feature name? Yes, already when I was using the get Windows feature commandlet, it is actually showing you the feature name. So you can actually use that name. You can use this commandlet to add one feature, or you can actually add multiple features in one go by separating them with commas. In reality, I'm actually going to use this syntax when I have to install almost like some 20 to 30 features in order to have SharePoint be running on this computer. I need so many features needs to be installed. So rather than installing those features one by one, I'm going to put the list of those 20-30 features next to the add Windows feature commandlet, and we're going to run this command. So let's actually go to the PowerShell command prompt and try to run these commands. So I'm now inside the PowerShell session. First of all, I'm just trying to type get Windows feature. So I get the list of so many features as we are aware of. So let's try to pick up any one of the feature that we might want to actually install it as part of this demonstration. For example, if you can see something related to IIS. For example, I see something like health and diagnostics. It's actually, the feature name is web-health. It's actually available. It's not installed yet. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to install only one feature. But anyway, I'm going to install some 20-30 features in one go in the subsequent lectures. Right now, my aim is to show you how to add a specific feature. So I can use the command add Windows feature, and what's the feature name? Web Health, and press enter. So now it is actually trying to add this feature for us. So you can notice it took approximately 1 minute for me to complete the installation of this feature. So after this command got executed 100%, I got this output. So it tells me success is true, which is important for us to note down. Do we need to restart our computer? No. Exit code is success. And because of this feature actually got added, it has also added so many other sub features for us. So this is how we can use add Windows feature and then the feature name. Obviously now if I say get Windows feature again, and if I try to look at the health and diagnostics web-health, it's actually installed. So both HTTP logging has been installed, custom logging has been installed. Sorry, now only the HTTP logging and health have been installed because of that. So this is how we can install a feature by using the add Windows feature commandlet. Okay, in the previous lecture I have shown you add windows feature, and in case if we have to remove a specific feature or multiple features, you can do that by using the remove windows feature commandlet of the server manager module. Again, I say that this is obviously the command that you're supposed to use in case if you're doing all these things on Windows 2008 server. On Windows 2012, I'm going to use uninstall Windows feature pretty shortly, but I can still use these commands on Windows 2012. So I can say remove Windows feature web health in case if I wish to remove a specific feature, or if you wish to remove multiple features, we can use this option. Obviously, we now know how to get this feature name. When we type get-windows feature, you get the list of features and you can see the name, and then you can apply in the subsequent part of the commandlets. So let's go to the PowerShell session and then try to run these two commands. So I'm back into the PowerShell screen. So I'm trying to say remove and then the Windows feature. So what is the feature that we wish to remove in this scenario is web-health. So I press enter and now it is actually trying to uninstall this for me. So obviously once it completes uninstalling this, if I type get-windows feature, I should now see for that health and diagnostics as the available. Currently it's installed, but we're now actually going to remove this. Though this feature I actually need it, I'm removing it because I'm going to add so many features pretty shortly. Right now my intention is to show you how to add one feature or two features like that. So once you understand, you can put as many features in these commandlets. So because I'm actually trying to uninstall the web health feature now, how do I install this for you again? Yes, I'm going to do that with the help of the install Windows feature command of Windows 2012 server. So you can notice now the success is true. This time it is actually advising me to restart my server. Exit code is success, and these things have been uninstalled. So if I type again get Windows feature now, and if I try to look for that health and diagnostics, you can see web health is now available, not installed. As far as HTTP logging is concerned, it is not telling me either as installed or available. It has a different state called as uninstall pending. That's because I'm supposed to restart my server, then the status of that HTTP logging will be available. So I'll actually restart my computer and I'll come back in a couple of minutes, and then we'll continue with the install Windows feature and uninstall Windows feature commandlets. Okay, in the last two lectures I've shown you how to add Windows features and how to remove Windows features in case if you're working on Windows 2008. So what if you're actually working on Windows Server 2012, as I am? I'm actually supposed to use the install Windows feature in place of add Windows features. Though I could easily work with add Windows feature even on Windows 2012, as I just did in the last two lectures. So the syntax is pretty similar. You can simply say install Windows feature followed by the feature name. If you have multiple features to be installed, please separate them with commas. So let's go back to the PowerShell session and try to run these two commands. So I'm now inside the Windows PowerShell session. I'm simply trying to work with the install Windows feature commandlet. So for the sake of demonstration, I'm actually going to reinstall the web health feature. In the earlier lecture, I have added and I have removed. So obviously web health feature is not installed right now for me on this computer. So let's press enter. So now the install Windows feature commandlet is actually trying to install for me the web health feature. So once this has been done successfully, you can go back to the get Windows feature and you should be able to see the web health feature as installed. So the command actually got installed successfully. It got executed successfully, and I got this output after a minute's time, and I can see the success as true. I don't have to restart my server after this feature got installed, and you can see these are the features that are there. So now if I say get Windows feature again, and if you look for that help under IS, so we now should be able to see that one as installed. So let me actually try to find that for you. So you can see under IIS, Health and Diagnostics Web Health feature has now been installed successfully, including the HTTP logging. So I can see the features as installed here, also obviously inside the server manager. So if I take you to my server manager, and if I actually click on local servers, and if I can scroll down, I can see the list of features what we have on this computer. So let me actually verify that one more time. If I click on the add roles features under web server and IIS, I've got my health and diagnostics has been installed successfully. So this is how we can install features by using the install Windows feature, and we can verify whether the feature has been installed successfully or not, both in the PowerShell as well as in the server manager. In this lecture, we'll see how to work with uninstall Windows feature on Windows Server 2012. The syntax is pretty similar to remove Windows feature. You can see uninstall -Windows feature followed by the feature name. If you wish to remove multiple features, or if you wish to uninstall multiple features, you can separate them with commas. So let's go back to the PowerShell session and try to run these two commands. I'm now inside the Windows PowerShell session, and I'm trying to say uninstall Windows feature, and the feature that I wish to uninstall is Web Health, and press enter. So now it is actually trying to uninstall the Web Health feature. So after this is being done successfully, again the Web Health feature status should be available, and I should not be able to see the Web Health feature even in the server manager console. So that is how in the last 4 lectures I was totally concentrating on how to add, remove, or how to install, uninstall a specific feature. Technically, we will be installing multiple features for us to proceed further to install SharePoint. So what are those essential features that needs to be installed? I'll be explaining to you in the next lecture. In the meanwhile, I can see the uninstallation has been successful. Yes, the restart is needed again from my end, and I can see the feature result. And this time, if I say get Windows feature, and if I carefully go up for IIS, we now should be able to see the health and diagnostics as just available. It's not actually installed for us. You can see now it's available, but whereas the web HTTP logging is uninstalled pending because I need to restart my server again so that its status changes to available. I'll do that and then we'll move on to the next topics. Okay, in this lecture, I'm going to explain to you what are the different features that we are actually supposed to install at this stage to proceed further. So I have listed out approximately some 40 features that we need to be installing before we actually go ahead with the prerequisites installation for SharePoint. But so are we going to actually install each of these features one by one? No, that's going to be a very tedious process. So that is where I'm going to simply create a PowerShell script. So inside the PowerShell script, I'll actually create an array. In that array, I'm going to take all these 40 feature names. So we extract the values from the array and we concatenate each feature name with the other feature name by separating them with a comma, and that's how we'll be concatenating a string, or we'll be building up a string. And that entire string I'm actually going to give it to the install Windows feature commandlet. But for all this to happen, we need to actually be using a very special commandlet in PowerShell called as invoke expression, which actually helps us to execute a string that has a PowerShell script command. So I'm actually going to copy all these feature names and put them into an array in my script pretty shortly. But before we get into the coding, let's try to understand what exactly is invoke expression is doing. This commandlet evaluates a specified string as a command and returns the results of the expression. So, for example, let's say I have a get Windows feature commandlet. I'm actually storing this valid PowerShell commandlet into a variable called as $command. So in PowerShell, all your variables have to be prefixed with the $sign. This variable name can be anything of your choice. So after I type this line of code, and if I simply try to say $command, the point here is, do we get the list of features or what does it shows? By default, PowerShell script doesn't understand what we are trying to do when we type just $command. When we press enter, it actually shows the value of the $command. So thus we might get the output as get Windows feature. But what if I don't want to see the value of the command, but I want this command to be executed? So whichever command this variable is having, that command is supposed to be executed. In such scenarios, we have to go for the invoke expression. So to the invoke expression, you need to pass your variable name. So when I run this command, I'm supposed to see the list of features. So let's actually go back to the PowerShell session and then run this command. You can now see I'm inside the PowerShell session. So first I'm trying to create a very simple variable, and I'm actually trying to store the value get Windows feature as one of the value for the $command variable. And this is obviously a valid PowerShell commandlet. Now if I just type $command, it's not executing the get Windows feature commandlet. Instead, it is showing me its text as it is. That is what we don't want. So that's why I say invoke expression, and then we are actually supposed to pass in the name of the variable. And when I press enter this time, it is actually giving me the list of features. So that means it is running the command what is inside the $command variable. This is what I have expected. So why is this being explained by me right now to you? Because I'm going to have a command pretty shortly here, install Windows feature, followed by all 50 feature names that I'm supposed to install. So I'm going to store that entire command into a variable, and then that variable I'm actually going to execute with the help of the invoke expression. So that's the whole idea behind using invoke expression. So as I said, my plan is to take all these feature names into an array basically. So whatever features I have shown you, so all those 40 features, I'm actually going to take it into an array, and then all the elements in that array I'm actually going to separate it with a comma separator. So for that we need to actually be using some kind of join method of the string class of Microsoft.NET's namespaces. So I'm going to spend some time for you in the next lecture about the join function, and then we'll move on to the writing the PowerShell script. And that PowerShell script will be using both invoke expression, it will be using PowerShell script arrays, and it will also be using the join method. Now it's time for us to combine all the knowledge that we have gained in all the previous lectures into this final program. So I'm going to take all those 40-50 features into a PowerShell script array, and then I'm going to use my join function and then the invoke expression function to install all these features onto this server. So I'm actually ready with some code. Let me actually show you that what I did here. This is going to be saved as a file with an extension .ps1. Of course, you can use any editor of your choice for typing the PowerShell scripting. If you use a proper editor, then you actually get the listing of the functions as you keep typing. So the very first line you can notice here, first of all, I have to take into references. You have to import the server manager module, which we have seen it already. Then I'm creating an array, $list of features. So how do you define an array in PowerShell? You have to put an @ sign, put parentheses, and close the parentheses. This is an array. Now here you have to take all your elements, array elements. So I have actually copy pasted all those 40-50 feature names into this area, and you can notice here each feature name is enclosed in double quotes, and each element is separated with a comma sign. So that is how we are ready with the PowerShell script array. Now then I'm actually going to use my join function here against my array. So you can notice I'm going to run my install Windows feature command. So I have another variable called as $installer command. So this is actually containing a string install Windows feature, there's a space here, plus string.join comma separator $list of features. So all these feature names will be separated, all the elements or all the feature names will be separated by a comma separator as a string, and that entire string will be added next to the install Windows feature, and then the whole command goes to $install command variable. I'm still not running because I would like to inspect what would be the value of this variable at the end of the program. So that's why I'm actually using write host. Write host is pretty much like a printing statement in PowerShell scripting. So I can say write host, and what is it would you like to print? The $install command. Of course, if you wish, you might actually redirect this entire output to a PS1 file, and you can run that PS1 file as well. That we will do it that bit later. Okay, for example, I'm actually happy by just printing this entire install Windows feature command onto my screen so that you know what actually gets run when we actually execute this. Okay, simply go ahead and try to save this file somewhere onto my F drive, and I'm actually going to call this as install all features .ps1 and simply say OK. So now I'm actually ready with my PowerShell scripting file. So let's go back to the PowerShell session, and then simply run the PS1 file. So how do you run the PS1 file? You can say PowerShell space, what's the file name we have? Install all features.ps1 and press enter. Okay, I had a small problem here. As you can notice, when I ran this command, I got an error. The problem was I haven't actually specified where this file does exist. Though I'm actually in my root of my F drive, and this file is also in the root of my F drive, my current directory. So I need to specify, instead of typing PowerShell and the file name, I should say PowerShell / the file name. Now you can see the beauty of the code what we have written. The output of this command, this execution of this file, is trying to tell me install -Windows feature. Obviously this word install -Windows feature was actually coming from here, followed by the net framework features. That's your first one, comma web server, that's your second feature, followed by web server, web common HTTP, and of course the last one was XPS viewer. So now it's my join function which has actually helped me to club all these feature names as one string, and that entire string was added next to the install Windows feature, which is actually stored inside this my variable. So right now you can notice I haven't actually executed this command. I was just printing onto the screen for our understanding that this is how the final command will be executed. Now I will apply the invoke expression against the $install command to finish the complete installation of these features. Now to this install all features.ps1 file, so where we haven't actually executed our command, we were simply printing that command onto the screen so that we get to know if there is an issue. Now simply I will say invoke expression and then followed by the $install command. So what is $install command? Obviously this entire stuff. So this command is now going to install all my features. So because we have given install Windows feature here followed by all feature names, this entire command will be executed by the invoke expression, and some result will go back to another variable like install operation. Normally after the features are installed, it will actually tell us whether a restart is required or not. That value will be inside the install operation. So that's it. So now we can see here I have used the join function what we have discussed, and here I have used the invoke expression because to the invoke expression I'm passing a string parameter which is actually having a valid PowerShell script command. So we're almost there to test it. So before I run it, just a quick recap. We have imported the server manager module. I have taken all my feature names into an array, and then we have applied the join function on that array by separating each element with a comma, and then we have added this string to the install Windows feature commandlet. You have a complete command inside this variable, and this variable I'm giving it to the invoke expression. That's it. We are ready to test this. Let's go back to the PowerShell session and then test this command. Okay, we are now inside the PowerShell session and simply rerun the same file again by saying PowerShell /install all features.ps1 file that we have just created and press enter. So now you can see it has actually displayed to me the actual command that it is actually executing. This is only for our understanding. And behind the scenes it has started installing all these 40-50 features that I have actually given here. Obviously, installing these many features will take up some time, so I'll actually pause recording, and once it reaches to the 100%, I'll continue. So basically what happens once it reaches 100%? So that means we are done with the very first step in this process. So the first step is obviously installing all your features. through your script, and that's what we did now. Once this is done, we're now actually ready to go to the next step of installing the prerequisites for SharePoint 2013. Once prerequisites are installed, then we're actually ready to install the SharePoint. So that is the whole process involved in installing SharePoint 2013 using PowerShell. So we need to have these features essentially at the operating system level. Once this is done, then we are more into the SharePoint area. Till now, we are still into the operating system area itself. I'll pause the video for some time. Okay, so it took a couple of minutes time to complete the installation of all these features. So once it has successfully done 100%, it simply returned back to the command prompt. Okay, so now I can say get Windows feature and press enter. Now this time you can notice so many features are now in installed status. So earlier we were having many of them were in available state. So now you can see most of the features including the IIS support. So many things are in the installed status. In fact, if you look at some of the IIS features like web health, web HTTP logging, web log libraries, many of them which were so many features earlier were in the available state. Now they've been installed successfully. I can verify that pretty easily from here. Obviously, if you go back to the server manager, and you can see the list of features that are already just been installed. In fact, in the server manager, when I clicked on local server and when I scroll down to the roles and features, you can see all these features have been installed. Earlier we were just having Active Directory and domain services, but now you can see XPS viewer that's just been installed, in fact, and there's so many other features that actually got installed. So this is how all this IIS stuff has just come. So obviously if you go back to the dashboard and if you try to just see what difference has it made to this screen, so now you can see the web services, the IIS is what is actually got updated heavily. So 30 of 43 features were actually installed because of that. So that is how we're actually done with the first step of installing the features at operating system level till now. The next step is to install the prerequisites for SharePoint that I'll show you in the next section. In this lecture, I'm going to explain to you how we can concatenate strings or how we can build strings in PowerShell scripting. For example, you can see I'm creating my commandlet get-Windows feature. We are very much aware of it. So I'm actually pipelining the output of the get-Windows feature to the next class. So which is what selecting just the name out of the Windows feature results. So obviously all the feature names will be inside a variable called as GWF. Now I wanted to actually print these values, whatever feature names that come into this variable, separated by comma separator or any separator of your choice. For that, I can actually use the Microsoft.NET's classes, which is string. So basically it's a static class, so I can call the join method of the static class by using the double colon operator. So string : join is the function. This is your separator. Your separator can be comma in this scenario, because normally if you are supplying multiple features, when we wanted to install using add Windows feature or install Windows feature, we were separating each feature name with a comma. So that's why the separator has to be comma in this scenario, followed by the variable name. So now all the values that we have in the GWF have to be separated with comma signs. So let's actually go to the PowerShell session and try out this command. So now let's quickly try out the join method as well. So as we were seeing in the slide, so for example, I'm actually trying to create a variable and then I'm storing the commandlet get Windows feature, and then we are just selecting the name. So the same has been stored inside the GWF variable. Of course, you can notice that I haven't enclosed this entire commandlet into a double quotes. If I use double quotes, then invoke expression has to be used. Right now you have simply stored the actual command into a variable. So obviously now if I just type $my variable name, the command is actually getting executed. So this command would not have been executed if I would have actually enclosed this into double quotes. In that case, you have to use the invoke expression. That's fine. We've already seen the invoke expression. Okay, so where is the join function I'm actually trying to include here? So you can notice I'm having so many feature names. But what if you wish to see all these feature names separated by commas? So that's where I'm going to use my string class, and then we're going to use the join method. The separator is going to be comma followed by our variable name. And now if I press enter, you can notice there's a comma between each feature name. So this is how we're actually able to have both invoke expression and the join function knowledge. With this, we're actually ready to write our full-fledged PowerShell scripting that should be able to install all those 40-50 features in one go. Let's do that. So far we have actually installed successfully the features and rules at operating system level. But we haven't yet started anything related to the SharePoint. Now let's do that. You can notice in this folder I have the SharePoint software. So let's actually try to run the setup and see what actually happens. Yes, we will not be successful because this server doesn't have the prerequisites that are required in order for us to go ahead and try to install the SharePoint. So it's trying to tell me the setup is unable to proceed due to the following errors. It is expecting something like Microsoft Identity Extensions, Microsoft Sync Framework, Windows Server App Fabric, and then we have a cumulative update package for App Fabric, and then WCF Data Services, and then we also have some MSIPC. So it is also trying to suggest us for the list of prerequisites needed to install the product. Please refer to this URL. So only after I install these prerequisites, I should be able to run the setup. So normally, if you get that error, the first thing that people do, yes, they can double click on the prerequisite installer, and then when we click on next, yes, it is actually going ahead and trying to install all the prerequisites for us. But currently, because we don't want to do anything from GUI, I wish to actually install these prerequisites using PowerShell. I'm not only going to install these prerequisites using PowerShell, I'm also going to download these prerequisites using PowerShell. So let me show you the various links that we will be looking at to download the prerequisites. So we have just looked at the error message that we got in the GUI that these prerequisites are supposed to be installed by us. So I'm just taking some time to list out all the prerequisites that needs to be installed into this slide. So like .NET Framework version 4.5 and SQL Server 2008 R2 Service Pack 1, Identity Foundation, all these things. Now I'm going to show you from where we can actually download these links. So at the time of recording this course, yes, these links are working perfectly. And anyway, there is a small txt file which I'm including as part of the code, so where you can see all these links. So I have to actually download these MSI files, these exe files from these respective URLs. I'm not actually going to download manually by myself from the browser. We're actually going to automate this through a small PowerShell script. So let's see how we can actually download files using PowerShell script. PowerShell is having a very useful commandlet called as start bits transfer. So where bits stands for background intelligent transfer service. So this commandlet creates a new bits transfer job to transfer one or more files between client and server. Yes, we can use start bits transfer commandlet either to download files or to upload files. Anyway, in this demonstration, we are more interested in downloading files. So if I wanted to download all my prerequisites one by one, obviously this is the easiest syntax. I can simply type start bits transfer hyphen source and then the URL which I have taken it from my previous slide hyphen destination. I'm going to put all my prerequisites into a folder called as downloads in my F drive with the same file name. So let's actually try to download one of the file, and then I will show you an easiest way of getting that done. You can now see I'm inside the Windows PowerShell session, and I'm actually trying to download one of the prerequisites using start bits command. So you can notice I've just pasted the command, so it's actually downloading my .NET Framework 4.5 exe file in the background. So as soon as this is done, you'll come back to the command prompt. So ideally, one way for me is to download each prerequisite in this fashion, or you can download all the prerequisites in one go using a different approach. So what was the command I have executed? Start bits transfer hyphen source and the URL from the Microsoft Download Center, and then the destination to the F drive downloads folder. So if I can take you to the downloads folder and I show you the directory, I can see my file name. So that means we are now able to successfully download one of the prerequisites using PowerShell script command. But this way it's going to be a very lengthy process. Instead, I'll show you how we can download multiple files in one go. So if you wish to download multiple files using the start bits transfer commandlet, the other option is to create a text file and put all the links of all the prerequisites into this file. And then you can actually use the import CSV commandlet, to which you can pass the name of the file and you can pipe it to the start bits transfer. So the start bits transfer commandlet will read one file from this text file, and then it starts downloading, and then it puts it into the destination folder. I have already created this file list.txt by pasting all the links from my previous slides into this file. Let me show you that file. You can now see I have a new file called as listoffiles.txt. So there should be some rules that we need to follow actually when you're actually creating the entries in this file. You should have two different columns here, like source, destination. This is a CSV file, a kind of comma separated value file. So what I did, I have pasted all the links of all these 9 prerequisites here carefully. And then after comma, then I said I want to download this file from the Microsoft Download Center and put it into the downloads folder in my F drive with the same file name. So obviously this part is considered to be as destination. So like this, you should get ready with this list of files.txt. And after that, it's pretty simple for us to actually run the import CSV command to download all these files into the downloads folder. So let's actually go back to the PowerShell session again. So anyway, we just have one file, so let me actually delete all these files. So currently I don't have any files in my downloads folder, and let's go back. And the file which I was actually talking about, the list of files.txt, is actually in my F drive root directory, in fact. So if I say type list of files.txt, you can see all those links along with the destination file name. So now we're actually going to run that import CSV command to download all these prerequisites into the downloads folder. Now let me paste the command here. Import -csv list of files.txt pipeline start bits transfer. Now you can see it is downloading all my 9 prerequisites one by one. Yes, this might take a couple of minutes, but we can actually wait because we can see once one file is over, then it picks up the next file and it keeps downloading all the files that we have given it inside the list of files.txt. So this is how this approach is the most useful approach, and then the easiest approach, wherein you can actually collect all the URLs of all the files that you wish to download into one txt file, and you can use the import CSV commandlet to pick up one entry from this text file and give it to the start bits transfer. Fortunately, the download took very less time, so let's go back to CD downloads folder, and we now should be able to see all our prerequisites we have downloaded. Now we can do a simple offline installation by installing all these prerequisites. So far we have installed all our features at OS level. We have downloaded the prerequisites. The next step is obviously to install these prerequisites, which is what I'm going to show you in the next lecture. So as we have successfully downloaded the prerequisites, it's time for us to install the prerequisites. You can see in my F drive SPS 2013 software folder, I've got my SharePoint software. And the file that we will be using to install the prerequisites is obviously prerequisite installer.exe. So that's the path of this file. And then in my downloads folder, I've got all my downloaded prerequisites. So now let's actually go ahead and try to install each of these prerequisites one by one. So now you can see I've got a special commandlet which is actually responsible for calling my prerequisite installer.exe. So the syntax is, you should say start-process commandlet. And in my F drive SPS 2013 software folder, I have the prerequisite installer.exe, and you have to pass an argument list to the prerequisite.installer.exe, passing the name of the file that you wish to install. So I've got altogether approximately 9 prerequisites which I'm actually installing now. So I can select all these 7 start processes command and I can run it. In fact, we can as well have just one start process command, and then you can install all your prerequisites in one go as well. So once the installation is done, actually it locks the information into your log files. So let's actually paste those 9 commands. So now you can see behind the scenes it is actually trying to install all our prerequisites one by one. Yes, this is going to take up some time, so I will pause the recording. As soon as the prerequisites installation is over, then we can actually move on to the next step of setting up SharePoint. Once SharePoint is ready, then we can actually see how we can configure SharePoint to start using it. So far we have completed 3 different steps in this process. First, we have installed all our features, then we have downloaded the prerequisites, and now we are installing the prerequisites. In fact, once the prerequisites are installed successfully, we can actually go on and start installing SharePoint. I'll actually pause the video. Once this is done, I'll come back. So after a couple of minutes, all the prerequisites have been installed successfully, and we have come back to the command prompt. And also you can easily verify whether the prerequisite installer is still doing job or has it completed its job in the task manager. So you can notice when I type P, I don't have anything like prerequisites file is actually running. So that means it has done its job. So what is the other way of verifying whether all the prerequisites have been installed successfully? Yes, fortunately it writes all its information to the log file. So let's go back to Windows Explorer, because I'm working in F drive, and then I can go into users, I can go into my administrator's account, and then I can go into app data. It's a hidden folder. You can actually change the settings in the Windows Explorer to see the hidden folders as well. App data, local, and you can go into temp, and in the temp folder look for the log files that starts with the letter prerequisites, and pick up the most recently created log file, which is at this point of time. So let's open this log file. So obviously you can see here it is trying to install the various prerequisites of us, and as you keep going through this file, you can notice it's installing .NET Framework 4.5 prerequisite and Microsoft Sync Framework, and then the SQL Server 2008 R2SP1 native client. Like this, you can notice all our prerequisites are being getting installed successfully. And you can notice, because I have made my argument list, I have used the switch unattended, so it doesn't wait for you to interact with the GUI. So instead it will do its installation in a silent mode, so you don't see the next buttons and all as enabled, so it will take care of them. And finally, our web server has been successfully configured, and somewhere at the end of the list you should see all your prerequisites have been installed successfully. So you can see all prerequisites have been installed successfully. Unattended installation, automatically select the finish button, so that's why the window gets closed. And finally, because it's an unattended installation, it's not actually restarting my server, but it is trying to tell me a reboot is required from my end. So thus we have now completed installing all our prerequisites. Now the next step for me is to run the SharePoint setup using PowerShell environment. So I'll show you that part in the next session. Okay, so far we have successfully installed the prerequisites, and after I have ensured my prerequisites have been successfully installed, I have actually restarted my server. And now I'm actually looking at my SharePoint 2013 software folder. So earlier, when the prerequisites weren't being installed by me, and then when I tried to run the setup, it actually gave me an error saying you have to have the prerequisites in place. Because we have installed prerequisites now, I should be in a position to run setup and see if it still throws that error or everything is fine. So I'm just trying to run the setup file from GUI just to verify that it is not prompting me for prerequisites. Because it is not prompting for prerequisites, so it means our prerequisites have been successfully been installed. So it's time for us to actually run the setup.exe through PowerShell. But before we do that, normally every setup.exe file, when we actually run, it does take some information from some config files. And obviously this setup.exe is not exceptional. So if you see in the SharePoint software folder, you will see a folder called as files. So when you go into the files folder on your SharePoint software DVD, so you basically see some 6 different types of folders. Each of these folder is having one config file each. Now, obviously, why there are so many config files and why there are so many setup folders? Yes, ideally setup and setup silent, setup single upgrade. These 3 folders are basically meant for standalone installation. If you are going for form installation, then these 3 comes into the picture. Yes, obviously, this one will be used when you are actually using GUI and wherein you actually do things in an attended way, and if you do in an unattended manner, then we actually put the config file in this folder. Or if you're basically upgrading from one version to another version, then we need the config file in this folder. The same applies for the standalone folders configuration files as well. So because we are actually trying to do SharePoint installation by ourselves in a customized way, I wish to create a config file by myself. So normally if you open any config.file that we have it along with the SharePoint installation folder, yes, you do see some entries like package IDs, another package ID, and we have to put a product key here, and then the logging type. Where would you like to log your information into? What should be the name of the files of your log files? What should be the server role? Would you like to do these things using installation mode? What type of setup are we doing? Is it clean installation or just upgrading? Or would you like to reboot your computer? So there are some values that we need to specify inside this config file. So to make this happen, you can notice here when I open the config file of my standalone server, standalone installation, the server role is coming as single server because that's a standalone installation. But whereas when I go for a config file of setup form, everything looks okay except the server role here is application because this is a form installation. Anyway, we are actually going to do form installation. So I have a custom config file with me already. Let me show you how it is looking like. So when I open this file in Notepad, so first you can see under configuration, this is where the configuration tag has been closed. And we have the first one, package ID. This is basically for the SharePoint Foundation. So the setting ID launched from setup STS, value S means you're actually installing SharePoint Foundation. And setting ID, setup called, value equals to 1. This is for the SharePoint Server 2013. So by keeping the values like S and 1, you're actually asking your setup.exe to install first SharePoint Foundation and then install SharePoint Server. And product ID key, you're supposed to use your own PID, not mine. And then the login type, yes, so I'm leaving this as verbose. That means that you're basically trying to log everything onto the log file, whatever happens. And yes, just like the default config file, I can still log my own things to the temp folder as well. And the name of the log file is your choice how you name it. I'm just trying to name this as SPS 2013 using PowerShell, and then this wildcard character allows the system to generate new files with some different dates and times as it keeps logging into the log file. Finally, the display mode level, I'm actually setting this to none because I don't want to see anything on the screen while the installation is going on, and I don't even want the setup.exe tells me that it has completed the installation. And we are just accepting the end user license agreement to S by default so that it doesn't ask for us to click on S. So that is how we have filled these entries. And finally, the server role, because it's a form installation, I keep that as application, and the using install mode has to be 0 because we're not doing it from GUI, and the system is supposed to be rebooted only if needed, and the type of installation that I'm doing is basically clean install. It's not like upgrade installation. So this is how you should get ready with this kind of config file. So I have this config file inside my F drive. Now the next step for me is to run this setup file from the PowerShell script. So let's go back to the PowerShell session, and let me take you back to the root of my folder F, and we are now about to start the final installation of SharePoint. This is obviously the most important step, I should say. So far we were successful in installing features at operating system level. We were successful at downloading the prerequisites. We were successful at installing the prerequisites. Now we are doing the final step of installing SharePoint, which will take some time for sure. So let's run the command. So the command is start process. In the F drive, SPS 2013 software folder of mine, I have setup.exe. And the argument list /config is my f:/customconfig.xml, and I'm going to press enter, and let's hope everything goes okay. So as soon as I pressed enter, interestingly, it has taken me to the command prompt. It doesn't mean that everything was over because we set silent mode. So how do we know? Obviously the setup is actually working. Yes, so it takes some time for sure, but still you can go into the task manager, and if you can look for the file setup.exe, you can see it's actually running, and you can see the memory consumption is getting changed every now and then. So as long as this file, you see this file in the list of processes, that means the installation is actually going on. The moment this file suddenly disappears, it means the installation is over. So obviously, as soon as the installation is over, you should see some 3 new apps for your operating system. One is your SharePoint Central Administration, one is your Form Configuration Wizard, and one is your SharePoint 2013 Management Shell, where we use PowerShell for SharePoint. So we'll leave this window like this for some time. In fact, I'll stop recording for some time. As soon as this gets over, I'll resume, and then we'll do the rest of the operations. Okay, it looks like the setup.exe hasn't disappeared. Sorry for that, it's still running. So I'm pretty sure this will take more time, so I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so after being waiting for a couple of minutes, I have noticed the setup.exe has actually completed its execution. So in the task manager, I no more see setup.exe. So that gives me an indication that the SharePoint setup has been completed. So obviously, if I can show you the new apps that must have been just created, we now should be able to see SharePoint 2013 Central Administration, which is new. SharePoint 2013 Management Shell, new again. And SharePoint 2013 Products Configuration Wizard, new. So these two have been created after my setup.exe has done its job based on the configuration file that we have provided to it. So this is how, so we now have successfully installed SharePoint. But obviously, at this time, nothing has been configured. That means I cannot actually open the SharePoint Central Administration until we actually configure our SharePoint 2013 server. So we'll be doing that using PowerShell pretty shortly. So in addition to verifying the new apps that we have just seen, we can also see in the temp folder under local app data administrator users, this is our log file that actually got created. So if I actually open this log file, and you can see the whole process, approximately it started at 21 minutes. And everything went well in 14 minutes approximately. So now you can see everything has been installed successfully. So no reboot is needed, and so if you don't see anywhere the word error, that means everything is actually perfect. So fortunately I see everywhere installed all that stuff. So this is how, after you run setup.exe, I want you to come and spend some time in the log file and go through its entries for any possible errors. So as of now, for me, everything looks okay. So we now have successfully installed SharePoint. So what is still left is just configuring our SharePoint using PowerShell. That will be doing it in the next lecture. Okay, so far we have successfully installed SharePoint with the help of our configuration files. Now we could also see the new apps that actually got created. But at this stage, obviously, our SharePoint is not usable. The reason is there's nothing in SQL Server that we did. So basically, we don't have any form configuration database and all. Normally, if you are doing the installation of SharePoint using GUI, after SharePoint is installed successfully, we go to the SharePoint 2013 Products Configuration Wizard, and with this you will be actually creating the form configuration database, passphrases and all. But obviously we're going to configure this through PowerShell. So for that purpose, this time I'll be actually entering into the SharePoint 2013 Management Shell. So as soon as I enter into this, it's actually trying to tell me the local form is not accessible. So that is because we haven't yet configured our SharePoint server, and this PowerShell window is enabled to talk to SharePoint. So now we're actually going to create a form configuration database. So you can notice I'm ready with the command new -sp configuration database -database server is my SP server is the name of my computer, -database name spconfig-db, -administration content database name is administration DB. The name of the database can be anything of your choice, and -passphrase. With the help of the read host, we're actually prompting the user to enter a passphrase, which we can use to connect other servers to this form later. And also we are prompting the form credentials with the help of the get credential, and press enter. So first I need to enter the passphrase. I'm entering it as passphrase _123, and it's asking For the credentials, I say /administrator and then my password and say OK. So now it should be creating the form configuration database for us behind the scenes. Let's wait for it. Okay, so anyway, I got a problem here. The reason was I have given my SQL Server name incorrectly. It's actually MySPS 2013 server instead of MySPS server. That was my mistake. I have just corrected that and trying to run this command one more time. And try to click on OK. So this time it is supposed to create the form configuration database for me. Okay, so now it has actually come back to my command prompt, so that's a clear indication the form database has been created. So let's go back to SQL Server and try to refresh, and you can see the form configuration database, and you can also see the administration database as well. So that means we are successful in creating the form configuration database. Now, because the database has been created successfully, earlier when I was actually working with when I tried to open the SharePoint 2013 management shell, obviously we had this error. Now let's actually give it try to it one more time. So let's go back to the SharePoint 2013 management shell one more time. And now you can notice I'm not actually getting that error that local form is not accessible. That's because your SharePoint form configuration database has been created successfully. So far we have created the form configuration database, and we have also installed the essential services and features. It's time for me to actually go ahead and try to install the SharePoint Central Administration. But before I do that, if you can notice, I'm actually inside IIS, and my default website, I have actually stopped it, and you can notice I have also clicked on the default website. It went into the edit bindings, and I have actually changed its port number from 8080 to 8085, because at some stage your SharePoint will use the 8080 in fact. So that's the reason I've changed the port number for my default website. Obviously I don't mind starting this. So currently I only see SharePoint web services running on some port number assigned randomly. Now it's time for me to go back to the SharePoint 2013 management shell and try to create the SharePoint Central Administration. So the command is pretty simple: new -sp Central Administration, some port number. I give it as 25,000 so I can remember all the time. And then I'm using the Windows Authentication Provider NT LAN Manager and press OK. So this should be creating for us the SharePoint Central Administration. So if this goes well, that means we have actually completed installing SharePoint 2013 using PowerShell successfully. So I can go into the SharePoint Central Administration and I can create web applications, I can create site collections, and you can do all our stuff as we normally do. So this is how overall, if you look through this entire course, the major steps that we did is we have installed all the features, roles and services at operating system level. In the second step, we have downloaded the prerequisites using PowerShell, and we have installed those prerequisites using PowerShell again. And then we have created a custom configuration file, and we ran the setup.exe with the help of the configuration file that we have created. And after SharePoint is installed successfully, we have created a form configuration database, and then we have created some essential services and features and application content. And now we're almost in the last stage. We're now creating the SharePoint Central Administration. As soon as this is done, I can simply open the SharePoint Central Administration in the browser, and we should be in a position to create web applications and site collections. As it's taking some time, I'll actually pause it. So now you can see this command has been executed successfully and we came back to the prompt. So now let's go back to SharePoint 2013 Central Administration. So I can actually click on this link. Now it is actually trying to open my SharePoint Central Administration in the port number 25,000. So now you can see my SharePoint Central Administration has been successfully opened, and obviously we're all waiting to see this screen, and I'm waiting for more than 11 hours to reach this stage of recording this entire course, and should be very happy for that. So now the SharePoint Central Administration has been opened successfully. So from now on, it's the way we work. So we can go to the SharePoint Central Administrations and we can create web applications, or we can create site collections and we can play around. So this is how, in this code, I've explained to you how to install SharePoint using PowerShell. So now the form configuration database has been created successfully. It's time for us to run 3 special commandlets to get the remaining things done. First of all, you have to run the install SP service commandlet, which actually installs and provisions the various services for your form. And you also have to run the commandlet install SP feature, and you can pass an extra parameter called as all existing features. So ideally, we use the all existing features parameter at the time of deployment or during the upgrade, so where it will actually scan and then install all the possible features for your SharePoint form. Also, you have to run another special commandlet called as install SP application content, which actually copies all your shared applications data to your existing web applications folders. So now let's go back to the SharePoint 2013 management shell and run these 3 install commandlets. You can now see I'm inside SharePoint 2013 management shell, PowerShell window. Please be noted, I'm not into the PowerShell window of the operating system anymore. We're now inside the SharePoint 2013 management shell, where obviously few snap-ins have already been loaded for you so that you can start using PowerShell for SharePoint operations. So let's actually try our first command, install -sp service. So this will obviously be installing and provisioning various services for your SharePoint form. You can now see it has actually completed its step. So the next step for me is to install all features. So I have another command, install SP feature, all existing features by force, and press OK. So this is going to install for me various features on my SharePoint form. So you can now see the command has been executed successfully, and so many features have now been installed for your SharePoint 2013 version 15 in fact. Okay, the last step for me is to run the third command that we have, install SP application content, and press OK, and that's been done pretty quickly. So this is how we have installed the necessary services and features on our form. Now the next step for me is to configure the SharePoint Central Administration. Now we have come to the end of this course. So let's have a quick recap of what we have learned in this course. In this course, I've explained to you how we can write scripts to install features at operating system level. I have also shown you how to write scripts to download the SharePoint 2013 prerequisites. Once the SharePoint 2013 prerequisites have been downloaded, then we have actually moved on to the concepts of writing scripts to install the SharePoint 2013 prerequisites. Once prerequisites have been successfully installed, then we have initiated the SharePoint 2013 installation using our scripts. Once SharePoint is successfully been installed, then we have written a couple of more scripts to configure the SharePoint 2013 form. The most important thing here, I did all these steps by logging in as administrator onto this computer. But yes, if you have to do this on multiple servers, I encourage you to create a new user in Active Directory and make him the member of the administrators group and log in as that user and then execute the steps that we did in these codes. So while applying the steps what we have learned at your end, if you get stuck somewhere, again, you can always let me know. I'll be very happy to help you on that. So again, thanks for being a participant for this codes, and I hope to see you in the next code soon.